Welcome to Charter California Edition. I'm Brad Pomerantz. We are joined by Tim Donnelly. He's a member of the California State Assembly, also a declared candidate for governor in our great state of California. Here is his latest bumper sticker. Donnelly for governor, patriot, not politician. What does that mean?
You know, politicians got us into this mess.
This mess being?
Well, look at where we are in California. Here we are, the greatest state in the union, and yet if you ask any business owner, they tell you they're overtaxed, they're overregulated, and they want to get out of the state. And it's not just business owners, people that are union employees.
We know our friends in Texas come here often to try to raid California businesses and bring them over to Austin or Dallas or wherever it may be.
And they have tremendous success. You know, but we don't have a whole lot of people moving from Texas to California. We used to be the place everybody wanted to be. But the idea is that we need patriots. That's a person that will put the country first and the interests of the country ahead of their own. And you might call it statesman, but I don't think that's a dramatic enough term. I think the idea of a patriot is somebody who's willing to go and fight for the country, to save the country. And in the state of California, I believe, as goes California, so goes the nation.
And I understand recently your son graduated from the Coast Guard boot camp, which, congratulations. But you mentioned to me that you visited, was it Patriot Hall in Philadelphia?
Independence Hall, yes.
Independence Hall in Philadelphia. And I could tell by the look in your eyes, it really impacted you. Tell me about that.
Oh my gosh, to be in the room where they signed the Declaration of Independence and the Constitution,
right.
to literally be there where they argued it out, where they came to the impasse and they went to their knees in prayer, and literally our country in its foundational documents was birthed.
Right.
It was really just, I got chills. And to be there with our sons, and then to go on to see him graduate and understand that, and I think a lot of people feel this way, if we're going to send people into harm's way, we don't want to have the government taking away that same freedom they're fighting for and defending abroad, but it's diminishing at home because of the actions of an intrusive government.
I want to talk to you about government here in California, though. I think it's fair to say that the state is pretty strongly Democratic. You look at voting trends, voting patterns. You're running as a Republican. And so what do you say to voters who have a history of pulling that lever for the big D?
The governor's race is one of the only ones where people will really come out of their party.
I understand.
And if you can convince them that you're fighting for them, and that's really the key. What I've done in the Assembly, I have a record. And I just recently was noted in the newspaper that I'm the most independent, meaning I voted against my party more times than anybody in the entire building. And I think that resonates with people, because most people think, hey, if you're just a shill for the party, right, what good are you? You're not fighting for me, because most people feel like the parties have left the people.
I want to shift gears and talk about a case that has touched so many people throughout our state, and that is the tragic loss of Gabriel Fernandez. Why don't you tell us a bit about Gabriel, and then we'll broaden the discussion.
Gabriel's an 8-year-old boy that was being abused by his mother and his stepfather in Los Angeles County in Palmdale. Mm-hmm. And his story, tragic story, came to light just before we were doing an audit on CPS, which is Child Protective Services. The Los Angeles Department of Children and Family Services, which is another derivative of this in Los Angeles County, had visited his home multiple times. There were 6 reports. The last one was open. Most of them came from his teacher, who could see the evidence. He had been coming to school with a black eye and a bruised neck, bruises all over his arms and legs. He had holes in his face where they would shoot a BB through his face and use him for target practice. And somehow the social workers couldn't figure out they needed to remove this little boy. And his teacher told me, you know, in the beginning, he would tell her directly what the truth was. And after the social workers began to appear and they didn't take action, he would begin to fabricate stories and lie, because he was trying to protect his mother from having the social workers come out again, because now he was being abused even more in retribution. And so just this week, those 4 social workers, 2 of them were supervisors, 2 of them were actual field social workers, have been fired for their negligence. And this is good, because here you have this outrageous story, and usually what happens in these cases is it just gets swept under the rug, and they do an internal investigation, and nothing happens.
But what's sad about the situation is this particular case came to light, but I am sure there are so many others like this that for whatever reason are not hitting the news media.
Well, here's the thing. I first got into this case because of a case in Sacramento County where the CPS took a child away because the mother wanted a second medical opinion. So
you're getting it on both sides.
Right, but that's crazy. So on the one hand, they're taking children they shouldn't take, and I thought, why would they ever do that? And then I discovered that they get federal funds. If they hold the child up to 18 months and separate them from their parents, they put the parents through all these parenting classes. Well, most of the accusations to the parents are they have a dirty home or there's not enough food in the refrigerator. Right. Well, heck, anybody's home who's listening right now could probably fall under that qualification. Do we really want the government that involved in our lives?
So, but that's the tricky point. You have, on the one hand, the Sacramento County case where the government was intrusive, as you described. On the other hand, you have the case in LA County where they failed
to act.
The wheel.
It was a failure to act. It was a dereliction of duty, essentially, because we've given them this incredible emergency power to remove kids. They don't even need a warrant. They can come into the home, they can grab the kids. Look, I think they need that. But on the other hand, they have to answer to the people for it. There has to be accountability. And that's what I discovered and why I requested the audit that was unanimously approved, because they refused, all the way up to the top, the department head told me, we don't answer to the assembly. And I said, what do you mean you don't answer to the people?
So who do they answer? Is it an executive
Exactly.
branch?
They only answer to a judge. If a judge allows them to specifically give details of the case. I said, but you sent 5 police officers to the door of somebody's home who just wanted a second medical opinion. Now think about that. While that case was still open and they were investigating and they had 5 police officers there, they had multiple hearings, Gabriel Fernandez's case had never been closed, the last report of abuse from his teacher.
So what was the response?
The response was, we don't have to answer to you.
But do they now, given the audit, or does legislation need to move forward?
Ever since the audit was approved, all of a sudden things are happening. When public scrutiny comes into play, you have bureaucrats scrambling like rats, trying to, because the sunlight's coming, and they all don't want to get caught.
So where is the executive branch on this? CPS presumably is part of the executive branch, the governor's dominion. So where do we stand?
The governor has never said a word about this. I mean, this is a tragedy in the making. This whole department, the way they operate, it needs to be dramatically reformed.
And in a lot of ways, what we hear from CPS is we're understaffed, we don't have enough resources. And so
I would say they're not understaffed. They're overmissioned. They have decided that they're going to get into everybody's lives because that's where their funding comes from. I think we need to change the way they get their funding because markets work, financial incentives work, even if they're from government. So we need to change that so that they're not interfering in the parents who obviously cared too much that they wanted a second medical opinion, and they completely stay out of their lives. Then they laser focus on these that are at risk of imminent danger of abuse, criminal abuse and neglect. That's the only part they should be involved in. I have got hundreds and hundreds of cases where people have contacted me and told me this exact same story. They got involved in my life and I could never get them out. Last night on Facebook, I read a woman's post. She said the social worker told me if I do really good with these programs, they might give me my child back at the next hearing. I will guarantee you, I'm almost willing to bet every penny I have that they will not give that lady her child back. And I don't know anything about her case.
So what do we do now? What's the answer?
The answer is we need to severely reform this agency or maybe even end it and start over because it is a disaster.
What are your friends in the assembly saying?
At the hearing, I was absolutely blown away by the number of Democrats who stood up and said, not only do we need to audit this department, we need serious reform.
So, could happen. Bipartisan support.
Absolutely. That's the way we're going to do it.
Tim Donnelly, candidate for governor, member of the California Assembly.